If we don't deliver, we lose legitimacy. Even as European Union, we have this problem sometimes. All institutions, we really have to deliver for our people. I think this is where the efforts are heading, where it is not just about documents, where it is not just about the big words of the rule of law, the human rights, sustainable development that we, of course, understand, but that also translate into the daily lives of our citizens make sense. I hope that this will be the source of reflection for all of us, and I have learned already a lot from the remarks this morning and look forward to the rest of the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Barrios. And speaking of the people, let me now welcome my friend, for those, for bragging rights, and classmate, the President of the Law Society of Kenya, Madam Faith Odhiambo. And as Ms. Odhiambo takes to the podium, perhaps to just reflect on the 89 public litigation cases, which are well within the LSK's mandate as established in its constitutive act. And I think over the years, we've seen a real rise to leadership by the Law Society. And Madam President will be talking to us about advancing access to justice for vulnerable persons and moving from commitment to action. Karibu.
Your Ladyship, the Chief Justice and Chairperson of the National Commission of Administrative Justice and the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Director of Public Prosecutions, the Vice Chair of the Council, who I know is represented by his able deputy, the Attorney General, the Chairpersons of the Council, I thought he was going to be there, of Governance, the representative of the EU, the Diplomatic Corps, the Permanent Secretary of Correctional Services, allow me, the Inspector General of Police, allow me to adopt the protocols, lest anyone feels I've left them out. Let me just say, I fear you all. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Advancing access to justice for vulnerable persons demands that we move beyond declarations of goodwill to deliberate, coordinated action. The Constitution of Kenya guarantees justice that is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all, accessible, affordable, and responsive to the lived realities of the people. Yet for many Kenyans, justice always feels distant. Imagine the single mother who cannot afford bail, the child lost in the remand system that does not, and no one feels like no one sees him or her, the protester brutalized for demanding accountability, the family that spends years in court seeking justice because their kin disappeared, the families that continue to come before courts, but their cases take years and years. This is the gap that we must see how to close between the promise of justice and the actual experience. As Nelson Mandela reminded us, overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it's an act of justice. In the same spirit, ensuring that every Kenyan, regardless of wealth, gender, or circumstance, can access justice is not benevolence. It's the fulfillment of our constitutional duty. According to World Bank report, the voices of vulnerable groups who are most impacted when justice fails are not often heard in discussions, and particularly when we are talking about justice systems. We fail to see them at the table, speaking and also sharing their experiences. So that is something that we must start as a reflection. When you look at our legal framework, the Constitution gives us the best background, giving us the anchor in how we can protect vulnerable groups and persons of special needs. However, we continue to see also the various statutes that we grapple with. There is nothing on the question of which institution is responsible for legal literacy. When we talk about access to legal aid service, we've left it mostly to the Office of the Attorney General and various small groups and institutions to run the same. However, we have not budgeted for the same to ensure that we actually see this as a lived reality. Legal aid is often not prioritized, looking at the importance in which it impacts upon the society. When we look at our judicial structure, access to courts by vulnerable persons continues to be a challenge. If you've gone around the country, particularly, I think the Chief Justice, you've been going around meeting the different branches. If you have had the opportunity of going to Kericho courts, I shudder in fear how I'm going to meet my members when I go to Kericho courts, because when it rains, it floods. And they will not want to see my face, because these are promises we have been pushing that we cannot see as realities. You go to various courts, even access to bathrooms, particularly for old people or persons with wheelchairs, they cannot access. They cannot get there. People with children, there are no toilets for children. So where do you expect these children to access? Just basic needs, basic services for them to be able to access and go to our courts. Even when we talk about virtual courts, how have virtual courts been made accessible for special needs and vulnerable groups? You either have to be literate, you have your own devices and gadgets, but what about those who cannot, they cannot read by seeing, or the blind? Do we have services that meet those particular needs? And also for different vulnerable groups, have we encompassed as we come up with these systems? We need to start looking at how we make access to justice a reality. Costs related to access to justice. I think this is a discussion we've had mostly in light of witness protection, but it's still a problem. Transport to come to court, particularly cases that take years and years. Somebody would rather fold up and say, I'd let go of this case, because if I have to pay 200 shillings every single time to come to court, only to hear there's an adjournment, the other side is not ready to proceed. This is money that they have spent. 200 shillings they would have used to buy seeds to be able to plant and get something that they're going to eat or put food at the table. We need to look at justice in that simple, rudimentary term. What does it mean for those groups? Costs related to filing, particularly certain public interest matters, family matters, gender-based violence matters. We've seen efforts by the courts to have specialized courts for GBV and SGBV cases. However, we need to look at, particularly for vulnerable groups who cannot afford. I remember this year we had a back and forth with the courts, particularly on the bail and bond terms, that were going to be quite difficult for vulnerable persons. When you're told to go to the chief to give you a letter so that you can get a bond, which chief will give you that letter? First of all, the chief will demand money from you. So what are you telling that vulnerable person? That access to justice is not available for you because you do not have money. And so those are areas we need to look into. Cultural structure. I think we normally talk about so many things, but we forget the impact of culture in our country. Franca Viola, a Sicilian woman famous in the 1960s, for having refused a rehabilitating marriage. Her case scenario was that her rapist kidnapped her and held her hostage for over a week and repeatedly raped her. And the law allowed for rehabilitating marriages, that once you're married, that you cannot prosecute. However, her refusal led to the prosecution of the rapist and in time led to the repealing of that law. What I'm saying is that we may not see the impact of the small things we are doing, but eventually we will see the impact that will come out of it. Today in our culture, in 2025 in this country, we continue to see targeted aged killings, where old people are accused of witchcraft for the purposes of killing them and taking away their land, so that someone who is tired of waiting for the death of their aged grandmother or grandfather to die so that they can quickly inherit. Raping of old people, rise of teenage pregnancies, the question of the Council of Elders. How do we look at working on the bad things and improving on what is good? By virtue of the task force on gender-based violence and femicide that was hosted by the Cabinet Secretary of Interior and also the Ministry of Gender, I had the opportunity of learning some of the bureaucracies of our laws and what the impact it does. Because of the question of filing fees, long periods of time before you can appear in court, and also the bureaucracies of long court cases. We see people going to the Council of Elders that is facilitating illegal settlements. We continue to see compensation for killings, compensation for rape, compensation for child labor. We see children who once raped, particularly in certain cultures, you lose the ability to go to school, the ability to have a future, and you're deemed, particularly as a young girl, you're no longer of value, that you're thrown away to either child labor or child abuse because now you have no value to your father because you have been violated. And so because of bureaucracies of our justice system, we continue to see people facing a lot of injustice. Today, as we launch this report, we ask ourselves honestly, what are the barriers that keep the poor, the detained, the displaced, or the marginalized from reaching justice? And what will it take to unblock them? Access to justice is not confined to the courtroom. It begins with the police officer who chooses restraint over brutality, the police officer who offers to listen to somebody who has come to report a sexual gender-based violence case instead of mocking them, the prosecutor who acts with fairness rather than expedience, the magistrate or judge who listens with empathy, the registrar who clears the backlog with diligence, the Attorney General who defends the rule of law over any other expediency, the ministries that budget for justice as a necessity and not an afterthought. It also depends on the Witness Protection Agency that ensures citizens can speak without fear, and on every one of us here, because every decision we make either opens or closes the doors of justice. But beyond institutions, access to justice lives and dies in the everyday realities of ordinary people. It's the rural woman who has to walk more than 30 kilometers to reach the nearest court. And so even when we have e-filing, physical courts are still a necessity, not only for the vulnerable groups, but also to ensure that those justice defenders are able to ensure that they can come and meet those vulnerable persons instead of just relying on virtual courts. Because access means real access, to be able to come and feel that you've gotten access to justice. This calls for intentional investment. We must fully operationalize the Legal Aid Fund, expand mobile court services, and strengthen public legal education so that citizens know their rights and how to claim them. Technology must also be leveraged to simplify access, from e-filing and virtual court appearances to digitized case tracking and digitized proceedings. We continue to suffer lack of access to justice when you cannot appeal for your case because there's no access to proceedings or the proceedings disappear. Yet we're saying we are digitized. Also, we should be able to get proceedings online. Transparency and data sharing amongst justice actors can eliminate duplication and delays. And as well as the Office of the National Police Service, the IG, the continued challenge of the question of authentication of orders. I think that's a challenge we've fought last time in the NCAJ Council, and I don't know why it keeps coming back. Once court orders are issued, I don't know what process must authenticate against the court orders. Court orders are valid unless set aside, varied, or reviewed. And so telling a citizen that that order you cannot implement until it's authenticated at the head office, what is that process? Can it be done transparently and openly, and there be timelines so that people can feel that I don't have to pay for authentication of a court order, yet I went to court to get that order in the first place? As former US President Barack Obama said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice only if we bend it. The work of bending it demands courage, resources, and unrelenting political will. The National Police Service and the Ministry of Interior should uphold that principle that security and human rights are not opposing forces. The Director of Public Prosecutions let discretion be guided by conscience and fairness. And to the Office of the Attorney General and the National Assembly on Justice and Legal Affairs, ensure that legal aid, law reform, and institutional funding reflect the urgency of justice that it needs. To the judiciary, continue bringing justice closer to the people through innovation, digitization, and mobile courts. And in the same breath, hold judicial officers who contravene statutes and constitution accountable. To all NCAJ members and partners, let this report not be another entry in our archives, but let it be our mirror, our mandate, and our measure of progress. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., justice too long delayed is justice denied. Every time a child spends unnecessary nights in remand, every time a widow is evicted without recourse, or a protester is jailed for speaking truth, that delay becomes a denial, and that denial becomes a wound in our national soul. As the Law Society of Kenya, we reaffirm our commitment to the conscience of the justice system, ready to collaborate where partnership is possible, and to litigate where accountability is required. Let this be the year we move from rhetoric to reform, from commitments on paper to action on the ground. Let us unblock access by removing administrative obstacles, reallocating resources to where the need is greatest, and rebuilding public confidence in the justice system. To borrow from Justice Willie Mutunga Emeritus, the Constitution is a living document. It breathes through the actions of those entrusted with it. In this room lies many actors who the Constitution relies on for you to breathe life in it. Let us breathe in that life together. Asanteni.
Asante sana Rais wa Chama cha Wanasheria cha Kenya. Kwa hakika mpango mkakati unaopendekezwa wa kuweka watu kwenye kiini cha sekta hii yetu ya haki utabadilisha sana vile tunavyozingatia haki za wanyonge ama waliotengwa. Kwa sasa ningekaribisha bendi yetu, bendi ya dansi ya magereza, kutupa kipindi cha burudani, na baada ya hapo nitamkabidhi msajili mkuu mheshimiwa kuchukua nafasi ya mpango huu, na imekuwa furaha yangu kuratibisha maendelezi haya hadi kwa sasa. Bendi, karibu. Asante jaji.
Basi tunaruhusiwa kusimama na kudensi kwa pamoja. Karibuni sana kwa heshima na taadhima.
Asante sana. Nafikiri tumekuwa na burudani ya kutosha, tunashukuru sana. Asante sana kwa viongozi wetu. Nafikiri sasa sisi wote tumechangamka, tuendelee na ratiba hii, na sasa namkaribisha msajili mkuu wa mahakama. Karibu.
Let me thank the prison's dancing band for that wonderful song. Emily Chepchumba is my favorite song, and I'm sure CS, you are at home. So, as we were progressing in the program, we were joined by the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Madam Gladys Boss. Karibu sana. You are most welcome this morning. Thank you, Madam Rose Washuka, for leading us through the first session of the program very well. And now we are ready to go to the second session. And it gives me a great pleasure to moderate this important session, which will be focusing on the new frontiers of coordination in the administration of justice. I'm sure by now we have understood that the administration of justice stands on three inseparable foundations, that is the people, security, and sustainable financing. To take us through this presentation, I will now want to call upon the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Douglas Kirocho, to make a presentation on public partnerships for strengthened justice delivery. Karibu sana, Mr. IG. Karibu.
Thank you very much. The Chief Justice, the Chairperson of NCAJ, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Interior and National Administration, Mheshimiwa Murkomen, the Honorable Attorney General, the Chief Registrar of Judiciary, the Principal Secretary, Department of Correctional Services, development partners, the President of RSK, the Commissioner General of Prisons, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am delighted and honored to be present on this momentous occasion as we launch both the Administration of Justice in Kenya Annual Report 2024-25 and the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Guiding Framework for Kenya's justice sector. In this regard, I thank the Honorable Mother Koome, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and the Chairperson of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, for taking the lead in convening us for this important event. These bifocal documents are a reflection of our collective triumph, attributable to the collaborative and consultative approaches adopted across the justice sector, which has contributed to a more efficient and effective delivery of justice. They provide an invariable evidence-based foundation upon which we can build a more robust, efficient, and humane justice system. As a key member of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, the National Police Service is usually one of the first points of contact for many individuals with formal criminal justice system. This frontline position confers upon us a sacred duty to uphold the rule of law with integrity, to protect the rights of every individual, and to conduct our investigations with a professionalism that can withstand the most rigorous legal scrutiny. Towards this end, I reiterate our commitment to enhancing measures to fight corruption, strengthen accountability, and ensure seamless service delivery. Pursuant to our vision of becoming a professional, efficient, and responsive police service, we are committed to building a service that provides effective, people-centric, and accountable policing to foster safe and prosperous society. Furthermore, the National Police Service remains fully cognizant of the significant constitutional obligations and responsibilities bestowed upon all the justice sector actors, and shall not shy away from joining you all in giving our utmost to ensure there is transparent, accountable, and impactful service to the people and all those that daily seek answers, interventions, and feedbacks from us. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, equally, it is not lost on us as a service that successful prosecution hinges on the quality of investigations. Each investigation presents an intricate puzzle, often requiring a combination of specialized tools, knowledge, and experience to piece together evidence together. From financial fraud, cyber threats, to terrorism and other serious crimes, it is clear that collaboration is key to successful outcome. The National Police Service remains keen to tap into this opportunity and will continue to focus on deepening interagency collaboration, leveraging technology and improving our handling of vulnerable groups. This includes enhancing our capacity to manage cases involving sexual and gender-based violence, children in conflict with the law, and persons with disabilities, ensuring they receive the specialized and sensitive treatment they deserve. In addition, the National Police Service has embraced community-centered policing, recognizing that the most effective intelligence and the only truly sustainable safety and security stems from collaborative public partnerships. Our strategy is to rededicate ourselves to building this trust from the grassroots upwards. As I conclude, I commend the Council, the NCAJ studying and working committees, the Secretariat, and the entire team that has worked tirelessly to compile the annual report and the framework we launch here today. I reiterate our steadfast commitment to working closely with all of you to foster a more coordinated, transparent, and people-centered justice system for the public good. I thank you all. Asanteni sana. Asante.
Thank you, IG, for reiterating your commitment to ensuring that we have a responsive police service, people-centric, public policing, and impactful service. Those were wonderful remarks. Our next presentation, and particularly the JLAC committee, represented by Honorable Steve Mogaka, to thank the committee for your commitment in ensuring that justice-related legislation keeps pace with our constitutional ideals and reform, because we know that lawmaking is the oxygen of justice delivery. Karibu sana, Honorable Steve Mogaka, to make your address on the topic of fast-tracking pending legislations in criminal and civil justice system by JLAC. Karibu sana.
Good morning, good people. Thank you. Lady Justice Martha Koome, our President of the Supreme Court and Chairperson of the NCAJ, the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Sholei, Waziri, my learned friend Kipchumba Murkomen, the biggest law firm, the Honorable the Attorney General, Madam Dorcas Oduor, the DPP, the CRJ, and if you can permit me to ride on all the protocols laid before me, permit me to make these remarks on behalf of the Chair of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the 13th Parliament, Honorable George Gitonga Murugara, who salutes you and assures you of our very best support in our endeavor to achieve our objectives. And he says, Chairman, I am glad to address you today as we reflect on the impact of legislation as a transformative instrument for justice. Allow me to begin by conveying the well wishes of the Honorable George Murugara, MP, Chairperson of JLAC, on behalf of whom I shall be making these remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee remains committed towards advancing legal reforms that align our criminal and civil justice system with the Constitution of Kenya, human rights standards, and the evolving needs of our society. Enhancing the administration of justice in Kenya remains very crucial. Over the last decade, the NCAJ and its working committees have driven major reforms through collaboration and innovation. Notably, to fully realize these reforms, the committee endeavors to ensure that progressive laws developed through multi-agency efforts are fast-tracked for timely enactment. Among the key legislative priorities before the Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs are the Penal Code Amendment Bill and the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill, developed under the leadership of the National Committee on Criminal Justice Reforms. These bills represent some of the most comprehensive reforms to Kenya's criminal justice system since independence. They seek to modernize the law, remove colonial relics, discriminate poverty, and ensure that justice processes are fair, efficient, and constitutionally compliant, as well as timely. The proposed amendments are far-reaching. They aim at decriminalizing and reclassify petty offenses, which currently account for over 70% of the cases processed through our courts. These minor offenses overburden and clog our system, waste prosecutorial and judicial time, and lead to unnecessary congestion in our prisons. By decriminalizing these archaic laws, we will fast-track the wheels of justice so that justice is not as delayed as is currently experienced. The reforms also propose to cascade offenses such as murder and robbery into degrees, ensuring proportional sentencing. This will replace the outdated one size fits all approach with a more rational and a more justice-oriented framework that upholds both deterrence as well as rehabilitation. And Honorable Ngenya Jeye, we really celebrate you in spearheading this. Importantly, the bills are also, the bills also define life imprisonment. They define life imprisonment, abolish the mandatory death penalty, and shift the burden of proof for incitement and disobedience back to the prosecution rather than to the accused, and thereby reinforcing the presumption of innocence as enshrined in our great Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, for vulnerable persons, children, persons with disabilities, intersex persons, and those with mental illness, the proposed amendments provide stronger protection, dignity, and equality before the law. By repealing derogatory terms and embedding safeguards for fair treatment, the legislation brings Kenya's justice system closer to those of international standards where this country actually belongs. Ladies and gentlemen, the Criminal Procedure Code amendments further seek to modernize procedures, ensuring consistency with the Magistrates Courts Act, aligning bail provisions with Article 49 Article 49(1)H of the Constitution, and then establishing a criminal procedure Rules Committee to guide uniformity in criminal procedures and innovation being enhanced. The impact of these reforms will be profound. They will reduce prison overcrowding, curb corruption linked to the enforcement of vague offenses, promote restorative justice, and improve Kenya's global human rights standing. Most importantly, they will make justice more humane and accessible to all, regardless of status or circumstances. In similar vein, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is also seized of other crucial bills such as the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2024, sponsored by the Honorable Anthony Tomo Luoch, MP. Sorry, lost his father the other day. The bill, which was read at a first time in the House on 4th June 2025, seeks to amend the Penal Code to repeal Section 226, which provides for the offense of attempted suicide. This amendment is in tandem with the High Court's finding to decriminalize suicide. Finally, and in closing, I reaffirm JLAC's commitment to ensuring that every law governing justice serves the people it is meant to protect. The committee will endeavor to fast-track justice sector reforms for the good of the nation, the efficiency of our institutions, and the dignity of every Kenyan. And on off-the-cuff remarks that I had here about the disparity and inadequacy of the budget, we all make this budget together, Kenyans, and we want to plead with you that when we start the journey of budget making, all of us ask for what we want, and then you send us Parliament to go and source that money, some from our pay slips, some from elsewhere. Don't forsake us, good Kenyans, when it comes to that. And then very finally, we want to thank the president of the LSK in absentia, I think she has left, for those great remarks, and you are all invited. And one more time, thank you so much for giving us the invitation, and we will work together in this journey, and together we will make Kenya greater than it is. God bless you.
Thank you, Honorable Steve Mogaka, for the great insights on the proposed legislative reforms and your commitment to fast-track justice sector reforms in order to promote restorative justice. Our next discussion focuses on a key component of the justice chain, that is correctional services. The effectiveness of the justice system does not end at conviction or sentencing. It extends to how we rehabilitate, reintegrate, and restore individuals back to society. And to share insights on emerging issues in correctional reforms for effective justice delivery, I'm honored to invite Dr. Salome Biako, the PS State Department for Correctional Services. Karibu sana, Dr. Salome. Kindly let us applaud as she comes to the front.
Honorable Martha Koome, Chief Justice and Chairperson of the National Council on Administration of Justice and President of the Supreme Court of Kenya. Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Administration, and also my Minister. Honorable Dorcas Odwor, Senior Counsel, the Honorable Attorney General, Honorable Gladys Sholay, Deputy Speaker, National Assembly, Honorable Members of Parliament present, all judges present, Mr. Douglas Kanja, the IG of Police, Mr. Patrick Karandu, Commissioner General of Prisons, all diplomatic cause, allow me to ride on the protocols already established. Firstly, Madam CJ, I wish to congratulate you and the entire NCAJ Council and Fraternity on this auspicious occasion of the launch of the annual report 2024, the NCAJ annual report, as well as the MEL guiding framework. Indeed, it is a great occasion, and we as Correctional Services, the State Department, are very privileged to be present here. The State Department for Correctional Service, a key player within the National Council on Administration of Justice and of the criminal justice system in Kenya, takes due cognizance of the internal and external environments in the correctional space. Indeed, for several decades, the global criminal justice system was characterized by a focus on punishment that reflected on societal attitudes towards offenders until the last 2 decades, when attention was shifted to a correctional orientation with stress on evidence-based rehabilitation. This was because despite the tough policies and practices, there was still persistent overcrowding, increased recidivism along diverse offense and offender types. Madam CJ, the State Department for Correctional Service, which comprises 2 technical units, namely the Kenya Prison Service and the Probation and Aftercare Service, in its transformative strategy, has adopted a 2-pronged approach to mitigate and address emerging issues for effective service delivery. This proactive approach has placed emphasis on both the practitioners or staff and offenders, and engages all senior staff, station managers, and all other sector players to play the lead transformation process with knowledge and skills that embraces rehabilitation, human dignity, and reintegration as envisioned under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, as well as the international human rights instruments. The reform agenda in the State Department for Correctional Services is governed by 8 key priority areas. Number 1, administrative, legal, and policy framework and support. The State Department, through the Technical Committee on Development of Legal and Policy Framework that was constituted through a Gazette notice dated 30th of April 2024 by the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration, embarked on examining the existing policies and legislation on both the policy and correctional service, and developed the Kenya Correctional Service Bill as well as the Correctional Service Policy, and both drafts have now been signed off by the Attorney General, and we sincerely thank her for the effort, and we are still processing. The second key priority area was revitalization of the prison farms, and the State Department embarked on increasing the acreage under agriculture and livestock production to increase, and also increase in capital for seed production, appropriate training, irrigation schemes, and post-harvesting storage using a multi-sectoral approach of other state departments. And in this regard, Madam CJ, I'm happy to report we have really increased our production as well as vocational training to our inmates in order to reduce recidivism. The third strategy was modernization of the prison industry, and in this regard, we have embarked on revamping our entire 108 workshops in order to improve the quality of products that we produce in carpentry as well as metallurgy. And in conjunction with our stakeholders like Manu Chandaria Foundation, we have increased the number of workshops, particularly in the textile and Karakana workshop. And in this regard, we want to sincerely thank the First Lady, who has been instrumental in supporting us in increasing those workshops. The fourth strategy has been in social protection. And the State Department has advocated use of community corrections to uphold use of non-custodial sentences. And in this regard, we want to thank sincerely the Japanese International Agency, which has enabled us commence something that we call community probation volunteers by use of community leaders, opinion leaders, to help us reintegrate offenders that have been released and to help them reduce recidivism, and it has been very productive. To date, we have trained over 600 community probation volunteers, and we hope that this program will be cascaded to the entire country. The fifth approach is through educational and vocational training coordination, particularly through use of our stakeholders, the TVETs like Kiambu, National Kenya Polytechnic, and other polytechnics, to be able to give our offenders who have been going through training the prior certificates of prior learning, so that once they have been released, they can be able to get jobs and they can be incorporated into the job market, and this will be instrumental in reducing recidivism. The sixth approach is institutional infrastructure and operational capacity. And in this regard, the State Department has embarked on reintegration of offender record management and case management systems. Digitization has become a cornerstone of contemporary correctional reform, and the State Department is progressively working towards deploying digital offender management system designed to integrate offender data with the judiciary's e-filing system and other justice sector databases. This innovation will enhance information sharing, case management, and timely decision-making across the institutions. And in this regard, we sincerely thank the World Bank, which has onboarded us into this program. The other approach is environmental and climate change mitigation, and in this regard, the State Department has not been left behind. In fact, it has been in the forefront of growing 100 million trees countrywide. To date, Madam CJ and Chair, we have managed to increase our tree coverage within our correctional institutions to the tune of about 30%, and we are intending to increase this so as to meet the presidential target of 15 billion trees across the country by 2032, by giving our annual contribution of 100, growing our annual target of seedlings of 100 million. We have created and increased our orchards and equally improved our work environment through landscaping, beautification, and now in this year, we are undertaking a movement from the dirty energy to clean energy through solar and LPG, as well as biogas. It is noteworthy that every first Thursday of the month is now dedicated to tree planting countrywide in all our correctional facilities. In conclusion, Madam Chair, these transformative approaches have inculcated a culture that celebrates excellence within our correctional facilities to celebrate our staff, and it is called Correctional Service Week. And this year we were very pleased and privileged to have our own Minister Murkomen be our guest honor in the Service Awards, and it is a platform where officers are motivated to competitively management, guided by selected annual themes. In conclusion, we must say that this is a testament that the State Department for Correctional Services is on track with a clear roadmap on reforms for service efficiency. Correctional reform is thus both a legal obligation and a moral imperative grounded on the rule of law and principles of restorative justice. I thank you, and may God bless us, and may God bless Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Salome Biako, for the wonderful remarks. I think she deserves another round of applause. Your reflections remind us that justice is not complete without transformation and the promise of human dignity. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I know in the program it is indicated that we have to have a short entertainment, but in the interest of time, I think we need to catch up on the schedule. So we are moving to a high-level session on distinguished sector leaders who continue to shape policy and our legislative landscape. And to begin us in our reflections, I want to invite the Honorable Attorney General, Senior Counsel, Dorcas Oduor, to speak to us on advancing people-centered justice, which is a vision that underpins our constitutional promise on social transformation. Karibu sana, Honorable Dorcas.
My Lady, the Chief Justice and the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Deputy Speaker, Ms. Sholei, the CS Interior, Honorable Kipchumba, Principal Secretaries, heads of justice sector institutions, Excellency Ambassadors present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries, you are all observed. It is a great honor and privilege to join you this morning as we launch the 2024-25 annual report on the administration of justice in Kenya. Allow me, from the outset, to commend the chairperson of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, the Honorable Chief Justice, and the entire Secretariat for their steadfast leadership in coordinating Kenya's justice sector. Indeed, the NCAJ continues to exemplify the principle that justice is the business of all who care for good governance. This report stands as a mirror reflecting the collective effort of institutions and individuals who work tirelessly to uphold the rule of law and deliver justice to all Kenyans. It reminds us that justice is not the preserve of a single institution. It is a shared responsibility that calls for collaboration, accountability, and unwavering commitment. The true measure of an effective justice system is the experience of the citizen at the point of service delivery. As the former Chief Justice, Emeritus Willie Mutunga, once reminded us, the Constitution is not self-executing. It requires active citizens and responsive institutions. Our success as a justice sector is thus measured not merely by the number of cases determined, but by how ordinary Kenyans experience fairness, efficiency, and access. This report, where all is thus measured not merely by the number of cases determined, but by how ordinary Kenyans experience fairness, efficiency, and access. This report also launching the monitoring evaluation allow us to gauge justice from the lens of the citizen, not the institution. Expectations and experiences of the people over bureaucratic rigidity. Justice means that when a Kenyan walks into a police station, a court, a land registry, or a legal aid office, they encounter fairness, dignity, and respect. And most importantly, they find justice. As Mahatma Gandhi wisely observed, justice that is not acceptable is justice denied. We must therefore ensure that justice is not a privilege of the few, but a right that is lived and felt by every Kenyan, particularly the vulnerable and the marginalized. Over the past year, Kenya has made significant progress in improving access to justice. We have seen the digitization of court processes, the mainstreaming of alternative justice system, and alternative dispute resolution, and the expansion of legal aid through the National Legal Aid Services. For example, through the digital transformation, the small claims courts have cleared thousands of commercial disputes in record time, helping small traders, many of them women and youth, recover livelihoods that might otherwise have been lost. But even as we celebrate progress, we must ask ourselves the hard questions. Are citizens truly satisfied with the pace of justice? Are adjournments, missing files, or procedural delays diminishing faith in our institutions? As Lord Denning once said, justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. This calls us to action, to restore faith, to build efficiency, and to renew trust. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I commend the Honorable Chief Justice for her leadership in expanding the alternative justice system and alternative dispute resolution, innovations that have brought justice closer to communities by promoting reconciliation and reducing case backlogs. Within our respective institutions, we too must innovate, whether through digital legal aid platforms, public legal awareness campaigns, or mobile legal clinics. Our shared responsibility is to design systems that meet citizens where they are, literally and figuratively. As the Chief Legal Advisor to Government, my office remains steadfast in advancing people-centered justice through law reform, legal aid, and institutional strengthening. In furtherance of this commitment, the Office of the Attorney General has undertaken strategic and deliberate efforts to enhance access to justice as part of the broader sector reforms, justice sector reforms. A key milestone in this regard is the operationalization of the legal aid services across all the 47 counties through the deployment of state counsel to serve indigent and vulnerable populations. As we all know, the Legal Aid Act came into effect in 2016. But since then, it has only been operationalized in about 10 counties, and even in those 10 counties, the government has not fully funded the legal aid services. It has been funded by donors and partners, which means we've not incorporated it into our system and we have not enhanced it. So the Office of the Attorney General deliberately appointed 100 state counsel whom took through the normal public service induction. The Chief Justice graciously inducted them for 2 months, and from 18th of November, in fact from the 2nd of November, every county has 2 legal aid officers. They will man legal aid centers. These legal aid centers are being established in purpose-designed fabricated containers with modern solar-powered and digitally connected containers. Each center will host state counsel supported by clerks and administrative staff and will provide free legal assistance in key thematic areas including land disputes. As we sit today, there are 15,000 cases against the government being handled by the Office of the Attorney General. We believe that 3/4 of those cases should not be in court. They are in court because of lack of legal aid and information. Probate and administration has been a cause of suffering to women and children. Just as an example, when you get letters of administration, a further step is confirmation and distribution. But we have seen our institution transferring properties, moving assets using letters of administration before confirmation and distribution. Therefore, the young people, the young children, are not benefiting from these assets. And sometimes even the widows are not benefiting from these assets. So we found that this is a very critical area for us to give legal aid, and we shall give legal aid free of charge in all the 47 counties of Kenya in this area to people who deserve. So in land cases and probate and administration, we'll have to apply the means test because they are civil cases. As you know, legal aid was provided for in the old constitution, but it was only in criminal matters, treason and murder. And if you are before the superior court and you appealed and you are not represented. Why civil matters? Because under the new constitution, they are now justiciable. So civil and political rights are justiciable, but they are not self-executing. So you must approach the court. As the custodian of human rights, defender of the rule of law, I think this is an area where we should give people legal aid. Our young people, we have to protect our Gen Zs from the system. And we are saying that if we effectively give them legal aid, just few of them should go through the criminal justice system. We should be able to remove children from the criminal justice system and deal with them in alternative ways. Now, the national commissioning of these legal aid services is scheduled for 18th of November in Kibera, marking a defining step in actualizing Article 48 of the Constitution and SDGs 16, which guarantees access to justice for all. This initiative affirms our belief that justice, like health and education, must be universally accessible to every Kenyan. And you'll realize that we are adopting containers to operationalize legal aid. Why containers? In Nairobi, the Office of the Attorney General and the Legal Aid Department is in Bruce House, 9th floor. How many people can go there? How many people can access it? We wanted a place that is accessible to the people and is friendly. So if you look at our booths for legal aid, we launched one in Machakos. It is a 20 by 40 container. It has 2 booths and an office. That office will contain a desk for probate and administration, land cases, and children in conflict with the law. That office will be a liaison office with the children's officers, the lands department, and everybody who works in that area. But in that office also, we are going to have a desk for POMAC, Power of Mercy, so that you can know how to apply. In that office also, we will have a desk for victims' rights, so that we can tell you as a victim, how do you participate in the criminal justice process? How do you get back your exhibits? How do you give victim impact assessment? It is a tall order, but I believe somebody must do it. If we do it together, we will do it. And we must work very closely with the Law Society of Kenya. An innovation that I must talk about in those containers is that the 2 booths are supposed to be teaching people on how to self-represent. How do you attend court virtually? So each container has 2 booths. We hope to work with the young people to educate the citizen on how to access the court virtually. And why that? Because the Chief Justice and the judiciary is moving very fast with the technology and virtual courts. But are they moving with the people? They are. Why are they moving with the people? Because it is the responsibility of other institutions like us to support them according to our mandate to make sure that we move with the people. So it is our responsibility to educate the people to self-represent and to know how to access virtual courts. So we hope that when we come to Parliament, Deputy Speaker, the National Legal Aid Services has never been supported. I have given them 100 state council. We will need to support the legal aid service. We will need to give them human resource and infrastructure. For example, leveraging on technology, we are going to have a virtual call center that is going to be operational 24 hours. They need money, but somebody has to do it. I am passionate about legal aid because my background is prosecution. I was there for 33 years. And I realized that we would do very well if there was legal aid. Out of the 58,000 people who are in custody, half of them are pre-trial. If they had legal aid, they would not be there. Half of them are poor, half of them are children. It is a wonder that now I went to Naivasha prison asking whether we are taking the people with us. And I must showcase the PS correctional. I chaired a meeting at the Naivasha prison for Power of Mercy, CS Murkomen. It was a family day, which is a wonder. The families came to visit their people. It was a very innovative thing. It was very, very, very moving. At the same time, Naivasha Maximum Prison is smart and clean and very well landscaped. You will not even think that you're in prison. And I think that is giving dignity to the people who are incarcerated, which is a very good thing. So what would happen if we fully operationalize legal aid? We will reduce the number of cases that go to court. We will sieve cases that should not go to court not to be in court. We will reduce the time that is taken by cases that are in court. We will sieve cases. We will enhance alternative justice. We will make sure that we have citizens who are educated, informed, accessed, and facilitated through the justice system. And it is only that citizen that is facilitated and is informed that is the person that can participate in governance and eventually participate in democracy. Because all these things are issues of process. As the former UN Secretary General Annan once said, without access to justice, there can be no human rights. And without human rights, there can be no development. To advance people-centered justice, we must begin to measure justice differently, not only through numbers or judgments, but by the lived experiences of fairness. Our goal must be to foster trust in the justice system by ensuring that every Kenyan feels heard, respected, and protected under the law. I'm encouraged that the NCAJ Secretariat will soon release the guide on people-centered justice, as outlined in Chapter 9 of this report. This will serve as a shared compassion to align our efforts towards evidence-based and citizen-focused reforms. The national commissioning of these legal aid services, that's a repetition. So let us therefore remember that justice is not an abstract ideal. It is the daily act of fairness, empathy, and service. When we make justice truly centered on people, it transforms from a system into a service, from an obligation into a covenant of trust. I dare remind us, justice is not measured in volumes of law, but in the humanity of its delivery. And therefore, for all the institutions represented here today, I serve the current government. And in the current government, our motto is bottom up. And if it is bottom up, each institution must ask, what am I doing? So the first question that His Excellency the President asks Cabinet every time we meet and in every occasion, in a mandate that you have been given, how do you make sure that you are carrying the people with you? Secondly, how are you making sure that your policies like this one meet ordinary life? Because they are not just abstract, but how are they meeting ordinary life? And then, just as we are working towards universal health care, how do we work towards universal justice? Not just universal, it must be quality, equitable, effective, efficient, so that we have a citizen that participates in governance and democracy. Justice means nothing if it does not protect the powerless. When we are here, we make decisions, but mostly we are making decisions about people who are not with us on the table. So how do you make sure that your participation protects the person who is not in the table? Let me just say that let us not be slaves to fate. Let us be authors of the future. And with those few remarks, together, let us build a justice system that every Kenyan can believe in, that is efficient, compassionate, and truly people-centered. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Honorable Attorney General, for the insightful exposition and reminding us that justice begins and ends with the people, and that human dignity is at the core of people-centered justice. I believe she deserves another round of applause. I believe that I have now earned an honorable discharge from the moderator's seat, and before I'm de-whipped, I would like to hand over to the Honorable Attorney General to take us through the next session. Maybe we can have just an interlude, a 1-minute entertainment.
Kenya yetu hakuna matata, mahakama zetu hazina matata, na viongozi wetu hawana matata. Let's go! Jambo, jambo bwana, habari gani, nzuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa, Kenya yetu hakuna matata. Jambo, jambo bwana, habari gani, nzuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa, Kenya yetu hakuna matata. Kenya nchi nzuri, hakuna matata. Nchi ya kupendeza, hakuna matata. Nchi yenye rotuba, hakuna matata. Jambo wote, hakuna matata. Thank you.
As we all know, in Kenya we practice liberal democracy. And in liberal democracy, it is democracy by, what is it? By which people? By the people? And how does it start? By the people. And the people can exercise that directly or indirectly. In Kenya, the National Assembly represents the representation of the people. They make laws that the judiciary then interprets and the executive enforces. It would be remiss of us to conclude this gathering if we do not hear from the representative of the people. And the representative of the people represents all of us. I'm reminded that I'm the legal advisor to the government, and the government has 3 arms: the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. So I'm also your legal advisor. I would be happy to hear from you as my principal, like any other person, on your thoughts of today's meeting, and secondly, on how you can support the institution to move forward.
Honorable Lady Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, Martha Koome, before I start, I would like to seek your indulgence to give me the permission to ride on the protocols already established herein. Thank you very much. So if I'm accused of editing my boss's speech, I shall say I got a Supreme Court order. Yes. And I will read as given to me by the Right Honorable the Speaker, Dr. Moses Wetangula, who was not able to come today, but he sends his compliments. And it goes like this. It gives me great pleasure to join you this morning for the launch of the Administration of Justice in Kenya Annual Report and the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Guiding Framework. The gathering is another demonstration of our country's collective commitment to the justice system that is fair, accessible, responsive, and to the needs of the people. Allow me, at the onset, to commend the National Council on the Administration of Justice and the leadership of the Chief Justice for creating a platform that brings together all arms of government and partners in pursuit of one common goal: a just Kenya founded on the rule of law. The theme of my remarks this morning is enhancing the legal, regulatory, and financing framework to support the administration of justice goes to the heart of a sustainable justice delivery. A strong justice system rests not only on the integrity of the institutions, but also on the soundness of the laws and financial structures that sustain it. As the National Assembly, our constitutional role is clear: representation to make laws, allocate resources, and exercise oversight. to ensure that the administration of justice operates with a robust enabling framework. Ladies and gentlemen, in this regard, I'm pleased to report that 2 critical pieces of legislation are currently under consideration before Parliament, both aimed at reinforcing the judiciary's institutional and human capacity. First is the Judges' Retirement Benefits Bill, National Assembly Bill number 27 of 2025. This is a historic and progressive piece of legislation that seeks to secure the welfare and dignity of our retired judicial officers. This bill recognizes that justice does not end when one leaves the bench. Those who have faithfully served the Republic deserve the comfort and security befitting their service. The bill has undergone the first reading. It has also completed public participation during this recess that has just ended, and the report of the relevant departmental committee will be tabled before the House this week. The National Assembly stands ready to consider and pass this important law. Secondly, there is the Kenya Judiciary Academy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 42 of 2025, which seeks to anchor the Judiciary Academy into law. The bill will institutionalize judicial training, promote research, and enhance the professional competence of judicial officers and other actors in the justice sector. This investment in knowledge is an investment in justice itself. As Parliament, we view the ongoing bills not just as statutory obligations, but as commitments to strengthening the rule of law and supporting the judiciary and the entire justice sector in its noble mission. Honorable colleagues and esteemed guests, through this legislation, Parliament recognizes that an efficient justice system is one that evolves through knowledge, research, innovation geared towards serving and safeguarding the overriding interests and well-being of our bosses, who are the good people of the Republic of Kenya who elect us, and from whom both Parliament and judiciary are exercising delegated authority. I am reminded of the famous words of Justice Louis Badris, who posed thus: the most important political office is that of the private citizen. In our context, empowering judicial officers through structured learning is an investment in the citizen's right to justice. Beyond legislation, we must continue refining the regulatory environment that governs justice delivery, from case management procedures, digitization, court processes, access to legal aid, and the regulation of professional standards. Regulation, however, should not be a barrier to justice. It should be a bridge that ensures efficiency, fairness, and accountability. As Winston Churchill said, if you make 10,000 regulations, you will destroy all respect for law. Therefore, we are aware as Parliament that regulation must there be smart, responsive, and people-centered, and should not be designed to serve or to stifle the people. Equally, it must be designed to serve the people and not to stifle them. Equally important is the question of financing. Justice cannot thrive on goodwill alone. It requires resources. The National Assembly remains committed to ensure that the judiciary and the justice sector institutions are adequately funded and supported to discharge their constitutional mandates. I hasten to add, however, that sustainable financing also demands innovation and leveraging on partnerships with counties, development partners, private actors, and also expand justice to the grassroots. I know that many members of Parliament do use CDF to build courts. And with that, and is a commitment that has been made. Is it not Nelson Mandela, our own African icon, who once reminded us that money won't create success, freedom will make it will? Similarly, funding alone, in my humble view, is not the answer. What matters is how effectively we use those resources. The amount notwithstanding, it must be used to transform lives and build a public trust in the justice system. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Assembly stands shoulder to shoulder with the judiciary, the executive, and all the justice sector stakeholders in building a cohesive, transparent, people-centered justice ecosystem. Our goal is not merely to have a functional system, but one that is felt and is trusted by Kenyans. Let us never forget that justice is not abstract. It is implemented in people's lives on a daily basis. As we launch this annual report and the MEL guiding framework, let us not make it a ceremonial event, but call it to action, a call to strengthen our laws, to streamline our regulations, to sustain the financing that makes justice real. And on behalf of the National Assembly, I reaffirm our commitment to support the administration of justice in Kenya together, and let us continue to build a nation where the law is not just written in statutes, but lives in the hearts of our people. And it's signed off by the Right Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula. Thank you. And just as I finish off the cuff, I think I heard from the Madam Attorney General the challenge of legal aid, but you need to come and make a pre-representation to Parliament. And don't say you want all the money at once. You can do a 5-year program and say that we can have incremental resources provided to it. Because had we started in 2016, you'd be on your feet now. And the teaching, self-representation is important. And let's be innovative. Those are innovative programs. I think that's what I took home today from what you said. But most importantly, let's use every space we have. Huduma centers. Train people who can go to our cybers. Because where does a mwananchi go when they want to do something? They go to either Huduma center or to the local cyber. And lastly, I would like to make a request to Waziri Murkomen that please, for the gender desks, don't put them in the police stations. Take them to the hospitals and dispensaries and health centers. Because if someone is attacked today, where do they go? They don't go to the police station, they first go to hospital. If a child is defiled, you rush them to the hospital. So why take them to the hospital, then go back for a P3 form? Because that is causing a lot of injustice. And a victim cannot be taken back to forth. I think we had put in this request before, and we are still waiting to see if that, we are still requesting that do happens. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. But I've always wondered that, don't you sometimes think that Kenya is over-legislated? Because we have laws that even before operationalization, I'm being called upon to amend, to review. And something that also intrigues me is that we make laws through Parliament, you are our representative. Chief Justice, I've got 50 pieces of legislation that have been found unconstitutional by the courts, and they were made by our legislature. So those are things that will need conversation some other day, and we have over 60 laws that are obsolete. So I think we need a very good partnership between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature so that we see how we can serve people better. Have we ever known that the heartbeat of this country or of any other country is the Ministry of Interior? The Ministry of Interior and National Administration is mandated to create an enabling environment by ensuring peace and security to the people of Kenya, maintain credible national integration, information systems, promote national cohesion, facilitate administration of justice. So all of us should be going to him to facilitate us, but above all to ensure security and stability. Most of the things that create wars in countries are about religion, about tribes, about age, about wealth. But the Minister of Interior is mandated to make sure that he brings everybody together on a stable ground. It has been said that it doesn't matter how much we develop. If there is no peace, if there is no stability, it is useless. As the Chief Registrar said, justice should be an instrument of peace. And it is only where there is peace is where people can thrive. So to that extent, all of us are in the hands of the Minister for Interior. It is my pleasure to invite you.
The Chief Justice and the President of the Supreme Court, Honorable Martha Koome, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, and my teacher, Honorable Gladys Boshole, the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Dorcas Oduor, the representative of the Committee of JLAC, the Registrar, the IG, the PS, and the leaders who are present. Good afternoon. Good afternoon once again. I know that a lot has been said. I am privileged to be speaking after a number of representatives of the ministry have spoken, the PS Correctional Services, the IG, and so I hope to make just a few more remarks to crown what they have already said. But let me start by appreciating the Chief Justice as the chair of this NCAJ for inviting me to this very important meeting. And I believe that in my 1 year in this ministry, actually 11 months, this is my first interaction of this nature. And I hope that in the remaining period of time of service in this ministry, I will have an opportunity to interact even more with you, because that is extremely important in terms of facilitating rule of law. Our arms of government are like the legs of a stool, each critical in its own way, but not useful without the other. The judiciary, the legislature, and the executive should complement each other for the proper functioning of our democracy. Our ministry sits in the core of the justice sector with the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, Probation and Aftercare Service, National Crime Research, and the National Crime Research Center being the principal members of the National Council on the Administration of Justice. When the National Police Service makes an arrest, that is just the beginning. The investigations becomes the foundation of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution and the courts. When a judge delivers a verdict, the Kenya Prison Service, Probation and Aftercare Service take over to rehabilitate and reintegrate offenders back into society. Why do I say all this? I say this today because I want to stress the fact that we are a system of justice. The criminal and justice system are not as separate institutions operating in isolation. We are one system serving the Kenyan citizen from the beginning to the end. When one part of the system stumbles, the whole system feels it and becomes ineffective. When we work together, justice moves forward and works better for the people of Kenya. I am therefore pleased to be here today for the launch of the Administration of Justice in Kenya Annual Report 2024-2025 and the Justice Sector Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Framework. While this report is a statutory requirement, it also more importantly fulfills our solemn promise to the people of Kenya for justice they deserve. I am glad to see the NCAJ model bringing together everyone, including state institutions, the Law Society of Kenya, and civil society organizations. We need each other. We need LSK, we need civil society to challenge us and to remind us what we should do better This should not be seen as an interference, but it's an opportunity for us to see as a high level of accountability in the country. This annual report shows us what we have accomplished and what we still need to work. But today's launch on the justice sector, monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework is equally important because it will help us measure something Kenya are deeply care about, the speed of justice in Kenya, the delivery of justice in Kenya. Let us be honest, Kenyans are impatient, and rightly so. When someone reports a crime, they want action. When a case goes to court, they want it resolved. When someone serves their time in prison, they deserve a genuine chance at the rehabilitation and a new start of life. In the recent trip we did around the country to assess our performance in the Ministry of Interior National Administration, we called it Jukwaa la Usalama. I realized something very fundamental. The common citizen down there they really don't know what is the role of the police, which one is for judiciary, which one is for DPP, and which one is for the prisons. Prisons, at least, they fairly understand. But for the investigators, the prosecutor, and the judiciary, they confuse all of it, and they want government to serve them. In fact, they do not know. Sometimes when you arrest somebody and they are released the next day on bail, they quickly blame the police officer. They say the police officer is very corrupt. That person was released immediately, and that they must have paid a bribe. When they are presented before court and they are entitled to bail, for many of them, they think that as soon as someone is presented before court, today they will be incarcerated, and the rest of the decision, they are not entitled to any bail. So they will be remanded until the day they are convicted. And they wonder why this is being debated. So at the end of the day, when someone is taken to court and then they are released on bail and they come home, the first thing they do is that this government is corrupt. And they do not know the Chief Justice. They only know that the government of William Ruto is corrupt. It has nothing to do with the judge. It has nothing to do with so they know only one government and one country. And I think this is the reality. I mean, sometimes we are lawyers, we are, speaking a lot of good English in courts and in such fora, but the reality on the ground is that people do not know the so-called separation of powers. Important as it may be in terms of functioning, they know that we are one government, one country, that they expect justice from us. And therefore, this should really be a basis for all of us to come together. When the Judicial Service Act speaks of efficient and effectiveness, these are not just buzzwords. They mean delivering results quickly, meaning speedy investigations, prompt trials, and effective rehabilitation. This is because delayed justice is not just only frustrating, but also very dangerous. The rising cases of mob justice is basically as a result of frustrated population, that they want justice immediately and soon. And so it is very dangerous for law and order and for the well-being of the country. If they feel that justice system doesn't work, they become impatient. And then you see rising cases of mob justice across the country. In fact, I dare say some of the mob justice cases are actually encouraged by the police, and I am admitting from a point of knowledge, because the police will tell the citizens, you think you will get justice? This thing will drag in court for another 10 years. Tafuteni njia ingine bwana ujiokoe. And njia ingine, they don't say it, but they are actually encouraging that if you can sort this matter, then it will be better. In fact, in most cases where people are arrested, taken to court, they are released, they are taken to court, they are released, there are high chances that the police actually will be probing the public to say, do something. And then they will come back and do investigations. And when you tell them, when will they, when you ask them what is the status of this matter, they say investigation is still ongoing, which is the statement I read every time I go to Parliament, and the most repeated statement is investigations is still going on. So it's important to expedite processes of justice, otherwise, it can destabilize a country and it can lead to a disorderly nation. When cases drag for years, public confidence in the justice system is eroded. When the guilty walk free, communities generally feel abandoned, and when rehabilitation fails, then the cycle continues. I know we don't always agree. Sometimes the ministry questions why certain cases move slowly. Sometimes it's the courts that question why police take time to investigate a matter. Sometimes correctional services wonder why they don't get enough resources. But this is what I want to emphasize today. We need to strengthen our partnerships. A nation is not made peaceful by force alone, nor more laws alone, but by harmony between both. Security without accountability diminishes justice. Justice without security cannot flourish in any country. You can carry a court order actually around, and if you don't have enforcement mechanism and a secure nation to enforce a court order, then it can be a beautiful piece of paper without a proper secure nation that can actually turn that court order to become proper results. So we have cases where people have very good court orders about going back to their farms or, taking back their property and so forth. And if you don't have a proper, if you have gangs occupying somebody's land in Machakos, for example, or somewhere in Nandi or Kisumu, and you have a beautiful court order and the police are unable to remove those gangs, and because of breaking of law and order, then it becomes very dangerous for a nation. And really, that is why I continue emphasizing. I wonder, there used to be a principle in first year law class, especially Constitutional Law 101, that a judge always is alive to the circumstance they face, and therefore they take what is called judicial notice. And it's assumed that judicial notice doesn't have to be brought up by any lawyer or a litigant in court. The judge should just be alive to the fact that, because we live in this society, if there is a flourishing of the many gangs in the country or people burning property, you don't need anyone to alert you to say that if you release this person back to the society, there is a fear that the particular situation will continue. So judicial notice is also very important. And it's also important to just know what's happening around, And you can only know that if we can talk. It doesn't have to influence your decision per se, but it helps you to make sure that you have a role beyond just making pronouncements. You have a role to ensure that the society is safe. I don't want to, let me just say this. I learned one thing, Madam Chief Justice, let me say this, that politics is the most hardening profession. Very. In fact, if you want to hire a very hardened person to do a very difficult job, just get somebody who has ever been elected before and survived an election. In fact, if they get re-elected, the better. And that process, once it hardens people, you can handle anything. I found sometimes that because judges and advocates and journalists are fairly shielded from criticism on this part, they are the most sensitive people. The slightest of criticism of an article that has been written by a journalist, they become extremely irritated. If you criticize a judge for his decision, it is always considered the worst sin. In fact, it is almost considered that you are interfering with judicial independence. But we get criticized all the time, caricatured, our children are mentioned, people say that we will visit them, Anguka Nayo and all that. And we keep just, moving and moving. And I think that, I hope that there will be a training somewhere that can help the other arms of government to go through this same process so that we can all of us accept to sit together and critique the decisions we have and we make so that we can make our country a better place. So when we identify problems, let us approach them as partners. Police reforms must continue to emphasize service, partnership, and professionalism. An efficient police service makes the entire justice sector more efficient. But that efficiency starts with how officers treat citizens at the first point of contact. There goes, and also that goes with the courts. Quick, well-reasoned judgments don't just resolve individual cases, they also help deter future crime and send a message that justice works. An effective correctional service that actually rehabilitates offenders prevents tomorrow crimes today by breaking the cycle of repeat offenses. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, we ended our national-wide security and service delivery dialogues known as Jukwaa la Usalama. To make just three, I just want to make very, very few remarks or lessons that we learned from this process. Number one is that we cannot survive or operate in isolation. We cannot continue protecting our turf. In fact, Chief Justice, I think we need to amend, even though the Attorney General said that we have too many laws, we need to amend the National Council of, the Principal Act, which is the Judiciary, what's it called? Judicial Service Act, yes. The Judicial Service Act, Section 37, or prior sections, I think 35. We need to, the court users committees need to be strengthened. I realized from the Jukwaa la Usalama that some of the problems that are bedeviling the nation is because at the county level, and I dare say even at the sub-county level, there is a very poor interaction between the security, the sub-county security team or county security team, the judiciary, and the DPP. And sometimes the back and forth is because the DCI officer who is doing the investigations, there's a DPP sitting somewhere waiting for the file, and then, you know, there is no interaction, there is no conversation. Then the matter is called to court, and because there is no general conversation around with the magistrates, there is a dysfunctional system in the county. But I found it very interesting in a place, for example, in Vihiga, where people are praising the magistrate, that we are working together with the magistrate and we've been able to reduce cases of gender-based violence, especially defilement in that particular place. And in some areas where the court users committees are working, the delivery of justice is really wonderful. Part of the reasons why people are refusing to work together, you will shock you. You will find in our ministry, the chiefs are supposed to work with the OCS, but they refuse to work together. And we found in one of the counties, I think it was Kakamega, in a place in Butere, that the chief says the real reason why they're not working together is not because of even their big persons, no. Because you work in silos so that you collect your bribe independently, you know? So if they end up working together, you know, so everybody's saying, I'm the one who is in control. You know, I'm the one who is in control. If the police officer, the OCS is telling the chief, telling the brewer of the illicit, whatever, changa and so forth, illicit alcohol, he's telling them, don't worry, that chief has no powers. Wewe tu akushike, akulete hapa, I will release you, you know, because he knows. So he's telling this one, don't pay the chief. Just pay me, I will and allow the chief to bring you here, I will release you, you will go. We also found in some cases that it is the DPP wants the DCI to continue struggling at the corner there on his own, and then when he brings the file, because the DPP officer at that level has been compromised, he will not approve prosecution. So no matter what the DCI has done, even if he has done a very good job, the DPP is not approving. Meanwhile, in some cases, the magistrate has already been compromised on the other end, even if a matter comes before court. So some of the reasons why people are not sitting together is because if they sit together, there will be greater accountability and corruption will be dealt with. And I think it is time we need to strengthen the court users committees and bring them together so that we can resolve problems that are affecting the people of Kenya. And the IG will tell you there was a time the administration police officer and the National Kenya Police Service officer were not working together. But when him and his team tried to push them to work together, there were greater results and so forth. And they learned from how the DIGs at the national level are working together. Now, those people, the court users committees at the devolved units down there will not work together if they think the Chief Justice cannot see eye to eye with the Speaker of National Assembly or with the President or with the Minister of Interior and so forth. So we need to sort our problems here so that they know down there that accountability, we expect accountability from them down there. And that's the same. If the IG is not seeing eye to eye with the chair of IPOA, there's no way the police officer down there will cooperate with the IPOA officers during investigations. And the same. So we need to foster close working relationships. Number two is that there is lack of honest feedback, you know, and we need to sort this issue. I want to challenge the judiciary to do what I did, you know, and call for, I went for 48 meetings across the county, and OCSs were telling us to the face. You know, some of them telling, Ministry, you have failed us. IG, you have failed us. The IG was being told to the face, how can you transfer somebody to Tana River and stay there for 15 years? How can you punish officers? How is the police station like this? How can you give us only fuel, 450 liters, and expect us to serve them? To the face. And some of the things now we are working on, the reforms, came from the stakeholders from the ground. Citizens in this Jukwala Usalama Forum were telling the OCSs, they were even telling us openly, this OCS is very corrupt. You know, this one, it takes bribes. And others were saying, please don't transfer this OCS. It's one of our best OCSs in this area. And some of the changes IG has done is as a result of this direct interaction. I want to dare the judiciary to hold only 1, 2, 3 public barazas in every county. You will be shocked, Chief Justice. I want you to take one day, call a big baraza in somewhere in Laikipia and sit down and tell Wananchi, 1,000 people, just talk about judiciary here. You will be shocked about the feedback, and it will help you to make things better. The reason why in the past we have not made progress in the security sector and the judicial sector is because we have shrouded in ministry. We clothe ourselves and say security is very, you know, is a very guarded area. We can't just parade the IG out there. It is important for us to look for honest feedback from the members of public. Number 3 is that we must face corruption directly and on the face. We should not hide. The question of corruption is in all the sectors. There are magistrates who are corrupt, there are judges who are corrupt, there are police officers who are corrupt, there are prison officers who are corrupt, there are ministers who are corrupt, there are PSs who are corrupt, and we need to face it openly without hiding and defending our places. And then the underfunding thing is cross-cutting across. The judiciary is underfunded. The police are underfunded. Some of police stations are too old. They are not functioning. We don't have vehicles that are serving the magistrates and so forth. And that's serving the judiciary, the administrators, and many, many others. So it is something that I agree entirely with the report that, with the report that there is underfunding. And you know why? During budget cuts, and this parliament should hear this, the places quickly where we lose money is this sector, because their money they don't look like a road, a water sector, a budget. Their budget looks like, you know, training. They say cut training first. Then we come back and say our police officers during Mandamano, they are unable to manage the crowd. But you removed their training money. They've never been trained for 10 years on how to handle crowd. They don't know how to do this. You know, capacity building and many other issues. So our money look like soft resources, but that are extremely important in this sector to maintain law and order. Please, Parliament, let's work together with the Treasury to make sure this is sorted. We also realize that we need to discuss this bail terms issue and the operationalization of Article 49 properly. There are cases where people are being held that should be released, but in most cases we feel from our side that people are being released who should be held, especially people dealing with gangs, drugs, trafficking, persons, and gender-based violence and defilement. From our Jukwaa la Usalama, many citizens think that suspects for defilement, because they are either chiefs, they are teachers, they are pastors, they are influential people in society. They should be held in remand as they weigh their decisions. And I think this is a discussion the judiciary needs to apply their mind, especially when it's drugs and it is, I'll conclude one more, but let me say this story. ACC, which is Assistant County Commissioner, previously a DO, told us in Makueni that they arrested a serious drug trafficker, took him to court. The public were very happy. They even praised and celebrated the administrators and the police. But the next day, the magistrate, I think, sentenced to community service, the suspect to community service. And then, you know what happened? He was posted to come and work around the ACC's building. So when wananchi passed around, they said, kumbe ule mtu tulishika, huyu anaenda kupigia chakula huyu dio kwa kwake. They never understood that they were serving community service. It's something we need to discuss and work on. And lastly, digitization is a sector that many Kenyans really appreciate. The judiciary want to congratulate you, Chief Justice. You are ahead of the rest. And that's why we are working very hard in the prisons. We lost lives in between the road between Baragoy and Maralal because prisoners were being taken to court in a situation where perhaps if it was a virtual court, we would have avoided because the road was already dangerous with bandits on the way. And it is important to note that digitization will make a big difference. We're working with the police service to make sure that we have digital OB, the instant finding system, and so forth. This is a subject that also this committee should work on. I think if I continue reading this speech, I'll take too much time, and you will not like me on my first day. Let me say that I'm very happy to be here. I look forward to a stronger partnership between this ministry and yourselves, and let's work together. I think, as my last closing remarks, I think, and this is for our judges, I think a judge, and being a member of this profession, who is properly trained and sufficiently confident, doesn't fear even sitting with the president, doesn't fear sitting with that opposition leader, because they know that they are guided by the law when they make their decision. But this idea that if you see the Chief Justice sitting with the president or sitting with a leader of opposition, they are having a chat, you make an assumption that, they are already compromised. It's the very reason why people are closing themselves in different areas, because they fear that if they sit in a particular place, they will be compromised. That is the same reason why the president of the Law Society of Kenya ran away from this committee to solve problems, because as soon as her name came out, they say she's been compromised. We cry that we want justice for the victims, for people who are downtrodden. And when we pick people like the president of the Law Society of Kenya to come there and resolve those issues they have been criticizing government for, then we're criticizing them for being there to act. And I think it is unfortunate. We need to make sure that we are properly trained as lawyers to interact with anybody, including across the, a lawyer for the defendant and for the applicant are always taking tea together. And so why not? Why can judiciary and the executive and the legislature sit down and thrash out issues that will promote justice in our country? I thank you. God bless you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, did you know that the NCAJ was established in 2011 under Section 34 of the Judicial Service Act? It was formally launched on the 11th of August 2011, and it provides that the Chief Justice shall be the chair of the NCAJ, and it is for a reason. The Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary. She is also the head of the NCAJ, and she's the chair of the Judicial Service Commission, particularly as the head of the judiciary, because the role of the judiciary in a democracy is to uphold the Constitution and to protect the rights and liberties of the people by impartially resolving disputes and ensuring that laws are applied fairly. It acts as a check on the executive and the legislature. And I'm sure wherever the Chief Justice is speaking wearing those three hats, Kenyans would like to know from me whether the judiciary has lived to that expectation. I have served with you because you chair me in the NCAJ, you chair me in the JSC, and you also are the head of the judiciary, and I'm the tutelar head of the bar. I know a few things about you. You are passionate about legal aid, and you have told us to work with the civil society and the law society, the civil society and the law society, because nobody can give legal aid alone. Secondly, you are passionate about decentralization. You have housed the DPP in some areas and the OAG. You are also passionate about children and women, and that is why we are piloting children in conflict with the law. You are also passionate about alternative justice and leveraging on technology. But above all, which some people don't know, you are passionate about supporting women leaders. You have spoken to us many times. You have inculcated into us simplicity, integrity, and transparency, which we all thrive to live in. Since I will not speak again, I know many of us are Christians. I am a Christian myself. And every day I wake up, I ask God to help me to endeavor to honor him by the choices that I make. And I'm sure you do the same. Welcome, CJ.
Thank you very much. Please, may we be seated. Thank you, the Honorable Attorney General, for that very kind introduction. Thank you, our very special guest this morning, read by our Honorable Deputy Speaker. Thank you, our CS. Thank you, all the speakers this morning, our very, very distinguished guests. I recognize all of you for being here and the work you do to make the wheels of justice move. A very good afternoon, everybody. Oh, wow, we are so honored to have all of you, and for the wonderful, wonderful speeches that underscore the need for our continued collaboration in the quest for justice. As I sat there, I wondered, what am I going to say? Because our special guests have spoken to the topic and to the need for us to continue working together. And we have come a long way. I've been in this space now for 39 years, and I know we used to really operate in silo. The judiciary alone, the police alone, the DPP alone, the AG alone, and how it was difficult because we kept on blaming each other when things did not work. We never even came to celebrate when things worked. So allow me to appreciate all of you, our development partners, the law society, all the actors in the administration of justice, because you have all played a critical role to bring us together in a spirit of collaboration and coordination And by, we are eliminating competition because we are realizing that we are all owning a critical part of this, we call it chain link, and it is always as strong as it is at the weakest point. And when one is at the weakest point, we are ready to recognize, like we have all recognized. Our weakest point is the fight against corruption in our society, and we must address it, all of us. We called you, our CS, as a special guest because we recognized what you did in Jukwaa ya Usalama. We always do it as the judiciary. You remember in January we had the Judiciary Dialogue Day. And at the Court Users Committee, we are always trying to bring everybody together. But what Jukwaa did was to energize the police, the chiefs, and everybody to take the rightful position at the Court Users Committee. And there they will be asking, why are things not working? So thank you very much for that, because that brought out the need for a complete Marshall Plan for the justice sector. It is an expensive venture for us to build those police stations, to build those courts. The other day, a young judicial officer was giving us our own experience of going to work in those courts where we do not have an infrastructure, and she has to walk with her high heels to a pit latrine with her tight skirt and her high heels. So, I mean, it's the same. So we need this infrastructure, both for the police stations, for our prisons, and for our courts. So allow me to adopt and write on the protocols and say to all of you, thank you for taking time to join us to launch the 2 landmark justice sector documents that define our collective achievements and strategic direction of our justice sector. We agreed along the way that we are all champions of justice, that everybody wants to experience justice, and therefore it is a common good. The Administration of Justice in Kenya Annual Report 2024-2025 and the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Guiding Framework for Kenya's justice sector is a contribution and a journey we have all worked together. I want to thank the committees of NCAJ. You have been thanked before, you have been recognized, but this is really your effort because our secretariat is very thin. I've never seen a secretariat that is so thin on the ground in terms of human resource capital and also financial capital, but it is able to deliver so much. Let us really appreciate these committees and our secretariat for coming up with many, many documents, including what we are launching today, which embody our commitment as a justice sector to accountability to the people of Kenya and our quest for continuous improvement in service delivery. As we sit here, we should always remind ourselves we are the apex. At the grassroots level, the court level, we have the Court Users Committee that mirrors exactly the people who are seated here. And we must work hard and ensure those Court Users Committees, like the CS has recommended, should work work with the Attorney General's kiosk for legal aid, and we must render justice to our people. Because that is what is required of us by our Constitution, that the justice system must be accessible, it must be transparent, accountable, and anchored under the rule of law. This is the vision also of the NCAJ that aligns with Kenya's Vision 2030, including the Sustainable Development Goals, especially goal number 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions, as well as goal number 17 on partnerships. AG, this approach also encompasses your bottom-up approach vision of the government, because this is the vision of the government that looks at the people on the bottom, the people on the lower hand, and seeing how can we ensure they too access justice? How can they be uplifted? How can they live a life of dignity? So for this, we are all together, because what we are looking at is a framework that reminds us that we must be fair, we must be inclusive, and we must be accountable so that we can maintain social stability and we can promote economic growth and foster sustainable development. CS, I'm not afraid of meeting anybody because I'm well grounded under the mandate that I execute as the Chief Justice. The Constitution of Kenya tells me about the separation of power, reminds me of the oath of office I have taken, and everybody, state officer, including the president, has taken an oath to protect the Constitution. So I'm not scared of any meeting or meeting anybody, because I cannot be compromised. I've always said my independence is not like corona, so that when I meet with the people, they will be infected or they will infect me. We are going to be speaking about the administration of justice, what it is that we can do to strengthen the cogs of justice and the wheels of justice. So anytime, please call us for that meeting. As NCAJ, we will come with our agenda, and we will even want to share these reports with the executive, with the legislature, and with the entire Kenyans. Meeting to discuss the administration of justice or the development of this country does not mean compromise. So for us, we have to continue with this partnership between all the actors, state actors and non-state actors, as well as our development partners, in prioritizing justice delivery as a driver of societal development, peace, and security. I meet everybody. I've met development partners, and they have told me they are here to represent the interests of their countries. And none of them is here to report on a failed state. They all want to report on success. So they have come to support us so that Kenya can be a success story. Kenya can be a case study for the rest of the continent where they come for benchmarking. And indeed, I have received in the judiciary many, many delegations coming to benchmark on one thing or another, including this collaboration within NCAJ, because they are wondering how they can have the court users committees, how they can have a children's month like we are in today, thinking about the children in the justice sector. how can they have a strategy that deals with the vulnerable, the SGBV, and the children? So we have many good best practices to share, and we are so grateful for our development partners because they have continued to encourage us. So among the notable achievements for the last financial year was the development of 2 pioneering frameworks that advance integrity and sustainability within the justice sector. We want to remind ourselves of these 2 very, very pioneering frameworks: the Anti-Corruption Strategic Guiding Framework for Kenya's justice sector. For us, this marked a major milestone in the sector's collective resolve to combat corruption and economic crimes. The framework provides for a coordinated multi-agency approach for justice sector institutions to prevent, detect, and respond to corruption and economic crimes. This guideline aligns with the National Anti-Corruption Agenda and seeks to strengthen the integrity of our institutional systems, to enhance transparency and accountability in the justice delivery, and promote ethical leadership across the sector. Through this framework, NCAJ has reaffirmed that justice institutions must lead by example in combating corruption and upholding integrity as a means of enhancing public confidence in the sector. I am always asking myself, what can we do to stop Kenyans from giving a bribe? Because we have laws that criminalize corruption, bribery, and all that. We need a national conversations with Kenyans so that we can come to an agreement in one accord that Kenyans are not going to give a bribe, and when they are asked for a bribe, they are going to report it as a crime. My mind goes back to when, in 2003, I think, when the NAC government came into power. And Kenyans themselves took it upon themselves to arrest those bribe-asking police officers on the road. And how I yearn for such a moment when Kenyans themselves will say no to corruption. So we, as the justice sector, must also implement that guideline and say no when they bring to us a bribe. That is what we are trying to do as the judiciary. It's a difficult conversation, but I have told the courts, before you start a session, have a daily briefing, and part of the daily briefing is to tell the members of public that this is a no corruption zone, and what it means is that the judiciary is implementing a zero tolerance to corruption, and no one is supposed to give or ask for a bribe. And because we know there are so many brokers who hover around the court, saying they have been sent by the magistrate, they have been sent by a judge, it reached a point where they even sit in court and they already know the defendant and the plaintiff, and they approach both of them to give them money so that they have a favorable decision. And whichever way it goes, if it goes for the plaintiff, they return for the defendant. If it goes for the defendant, they return for the plaintiff. That is how low we have sunk as a country. And therefore, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we have to say no to corruption. We have to cleanse our institutions and say we are all implementing a zero tolerance to corruption. The second strategic guiding framework that we launched this year was then greening the justice sector. And thank you, Correctional Services, for what you're doing. Thank you, everybody, in what you're doing to preserve our environment, because it underscores the justice sector's recognition of environmental stewardship as a pillar for justice and as a connection to our future generations. It seeks to mainstream climate consciousness, sustain resource use and eco-friendly practices in our operations as actors in the justice sector. This initiative reflects the justice institution's broader commitment to intergenerational equity, ensuring that in dispensing justice today, we are also safeguarding the rights and the well-being of our future generations. The report also records significant strides in enhancing institutional capacity through investment in human capital, ICT infrastructure, and financial management. The report recognizes and acknowledges the efforts being made around the country by all the justice actors coming together as court users committees and grassroots forums that continue to bridge the gap between the justice institutions and communities. Through the court users committees and other grassroots forums, we ensure that we connect with them because we are serving them, we are their servants, and ensuring that justice is not a distant ideal, but a reality. As the Executive Director highlighted, the annual report has identified numerous strategic priorities for the year 2025-2026, because for us in NCAJ, we look more into the future. For us to effectively implement these priorities, we are delighted that we are also launching the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Guiding Framework for our justice sector. Since inception in 2011, the NCAJ has developed, disseminated, and implemented diverse policy, legal, and administrative reforms. However, despite the progress we have made in this reform arena and the coordination of the justice system, one of the challenges has been determining and measuring the impacts of these efforts on the society. We have done all this, but how has it changed the ordinary mwananchi, the ordinary justice seeker? What difference has it made? In the judiciary, we also ask ourselves that question, Honorable CS. How are we impacting positively to the society? How are our judgments and rulings changing and helping our society remain on the trajectory of ensuring there is rule of law, security for everybody? So our monitoring and evaluation running guiding framework represents a cultural shift towards evidence-based decision-making, performance tracking, and adaptive learning within the justice sector. By institutionalizing this monitoring and evaluation across the justice sector agencies, we will ensure that progress is not left to perception and rhetoric, but will be anchored in measurable outcomes. And for us, this is a significant step towards rebuilding public trust. Long are the days when we end on independence of the judiciary, on the decisions that we make. That independence is spoken in the same wording and sentence. It goes with accountability. So looking ahead to the year 2025-2026, We at NCAJ remain committed to deepening reforms and consolidating our achievements and working together to support each other. We have very little resources in the judiciary, especially for legal aid, for our pro bono briefs. But Honorable Attorney General, we have said we are ready to give you that budget, which comes to the judiciary, so that you manage the pro bono, the legal aid services also in the judiciary. Because we appreciate that is your mandate. We just came in to fill in the gap when the legal aid was not working. Now that you have operationalized it, please, CRJ, transfer that budget to her and let her administer pro bono and the entire legal aid services, because that is your mandate. So our strategic priorities will include, among other things, upscaling the fight against corruption, and this I'm happy to note. The IG also, my brother, you were able to launch the anti-corruption committees within the police stations. It's a good step. Let us start somewhere. Digitize the OB so that we know the people who are being taken to the police station, they are recorded in the OB, which we can all track. And soon, you're also going to have a policy on the decision to arrest, like the ODPP, as a policy on decision to charge. We are talking about accountability, isn't it? So we are making some strides, and we are happy about that. We are working on the NCAJ bill, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank Ms. Jedida Waroyo, who has helped us to fast-track that bill so that NCAJ can stand on its own. I can assure you, where we stand under the JES Act, NCAJ, we don't even have a budget. The little budget you give to JSC to run the entire JSC is divided between JSC, NCAJ, and Kenya Judiciary Academy. But thanks be to all of you, our partners, we've been able to get this far. Madam Jedida Waroyo has worked very hard with the committee that is looking at the NCAJ bill. And I now urge the leadership of the National Assembly present to support us to have that bill passed so that NCAJ can have its own budget, can have its own structure and system that can be able to support all this work of coordination. When I look at the NCAJ, I actually see a ministry, a whole ministry on coordination. So, but without a budget. So please, National Assembly, also please consider, like Honorable Mogaka said, to pass the recommendations that we made on the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, which were already submitted for consideration by the National Assembly. This will help us. I don't want to go there. You all highlighted. These are colonial relics carrying some of these offenses, which are so burdensome to us as a country and also to the people of this country. So as we move forward, we will continue to enhance digital integration. We will continue to promote interoperability of ICT systems. We are willing, as we accommodated Wadirifu and our ODPP, we are willing to accommodate the Attorney General and even the police, the prisons, and everybody so that we can harness our data to facilitate coordinated, efficient, and transparent justice processes. I also urge all the justice sector institutions to enhance their own M&E functions for effective implementation of this sector's guiding framework. Fortunately, the guiding framework tells us what we need to do in each of the sectors. And to conclude, our collective vision is to nurture a justice system that is people-centered, that is transparent and is transformative, one that upholds the rule of law, protects rights and freedoms, and contributes meaningfully to national unity, peace, and prosperity. This is indeed the essence of a justice system that is provided for in our Constitution and has been reinforced by our strategic and global commitments. I take this opportunity to express my deepest appreciation to all the NCAJ member institutions, the NCAJ Secretariat, the working committees, the court users committees for their handwork and collaboration. We were criticized one time that NCAJ is heavily leaning on the judiciary, but we welcomed everybody. That's why we have the DPP as the vice chair, and we have the council members who are ends of the institutions. But this is by the design of the Court Users Committee that is run by the judiciary that generates all the issues that we deal with. At NCAJ, we always say the more the merrier. Everybody is welcome at the NCAJ. And as we move forward, I urge all the justice sectors and actors, both state and non-state, to sustain this momentum. Let us continue to resource and implement the priority programs outlined in the report and also in the MEL framework we are launching. Let us also embrace innovation, learning, and shared responsibility as we work towards a justice system that reflects the aspirations of every Kenyan. I thank all of you for your unwavering dedication to justice and to the people of Kenya for giving us this opportunity to serve them and be of service to them. May our shared efforts continue to build a just, peaceful, and prosperous nation. I thank you all, and God bless you.
Hiyo makofi haijatosha, nataka tupashe, kupasha ni ile, tupashe, tumwagushie moja, mbili. Asante sana Honorable Chief Justice, asante sana our special guests, asante sana council members. We are indeed delighted for gracing this occasion. We are delighted for the speeches. We are indeed very happy. With your permission, Honorable Chief Justice, and then we will take 3 photos. The photos will be, 1, all those who have spoken today. Number 2, council members and the partners will join the second photo. And then number 3, the team that has prepared the report joined by NCAJ Secretariat. So with your permission, Honorable Chief Justice, I will request you to step forward And I would also request someone to assist me in moving this podium out of here. Secretariat team, kindly share the 3 reports to those who have spoken today. We will share the rest of the documents. All the speakers of today, the CS, Deputy Speaker, kujeni hapa tafadhali. Thank you. Tupige laini hapo. I was trembling when I was holding that gadget I have given the Honorable CJ nisifinye kimakosa, and then we launch. And I was thinking she will instruct the Inspector General I be arrested, but I'm lucky today. Wale wameongea wote tusimame hapo nyuma. This is a big moment around. Asante.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to go and implement the priority programs. It is time to join hands, enhance collaboration and partnership. We have the annual report, which outlines priority programs for the justice sector and the monitoring, evaluation, and learning guiding framework to support their implementation. Going forward, let us endeavor to ensure that justice is people-centered.
Asanteni sana kwa unyenyekevu. Nitaomba tusimame hapa mbele chini ndio tuanze picha ya kwanza. Secretariat team tuweze kuwapea vitabu, ni vitabu 3. Sijui kama Okay. I'm guided to kujwe hapa juu. Someone to assist with the I like the way our esteemed guest wanauliza ni gani itakuja ya kwanza, ama washike zote pamoja na mikono yote. Tell us when you are ready. We request that we remain there for the council members to kindly join the team for the photo. Kindly, we are only having 3 photos joined by NCAJ chairpersons, Justice Genye, Justice Madeka, Justice Mabea, partners. Kindly join the podium so that we can have the photo.